Hey guys, so today I've got a treat. I'm gonna be streaming a solo view of an old 1999 multiplayer first-person shooter game called Spellbinder. So, without further ado, let's just launch the game so we can see it. So this game was made by Mythic. It was the sequel to Magestorm, and it was the prequel to Dark Ages of Camelot. They used the graphic engine from this game into Dark Ages of Camelot, which was an MMO also made by Mythic, and then later bought by EA. So, basically what I'm trying to do with this video is accomplish two things. One, for people like myself who played this game back in 99, 2000 through about 2002, 2003, this is going to be like a little nostalgia trip. And for the people that didn't, but maybe heard of the game through studying old video games, reading about Mythic, and have never really gotten to see this game, this is your opportunity. So what happened is I acquired the client-side files. We're not connected to a server, this is just running locally, so I can't create the fourth character because the character file that I have only has 3 of the 4 characters in it. And it's really unfortunate because the one character that's missing was the one that I played the most, which was Healer. But at least we've got 3 other characters at level 25 that we can play with and show off a bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of wander around through some of the maps. I'm going to show off the spells of the 3 heroes that we have available to us, and talk about the maps, talk about the spells, and just talk about the game in general. So Magician is where we're going to start. So if I take you to the character screen, I've already readied up a bunch of the spells that we're going to use, but I'm just going to kind of do a quick summary of what the Magician is here. So the Magician was the offensive hero of the game, offensive juggernaut, if you will. So all of their spells are broken down into 4 classes. You got fire, ice, wind, and earth. So as you level up, you get more spells. That's what the number here signifies. You start at obviously level 1, you max out at 25. So starting with Flame Streak, and then as you progress through the levels, you go up to 2 and 3, and then you upgrade to Fireballs and greater Fireballs, Ice Shards, Reflective Ice. That one I'm going to be showing off. You can see all the spells there. The wind spells, that was always kind of came with some controversy to it, and I'll show you why in a little bit. But anytime you used wind when this game was popular, this would get you in trouble with the community. It's kind of like an unwritten rule that you were never to use these. And then finally Earth Law, which came way later in the game. Alright, let's go to Keep first. Keep was the most popular map. It's interesting it started me here. I'm gonna start. This is where you're supposed to start. So this is your shrine. As we go through the map, you'll see that there's 3 of these. As you can see at the top, there's the red, yellow, and blue. So everybody starts in their shrine room. Show off a few of these spells here. Fireball 2. It's like a bigger, stronger version of Fireball 1. Fire Spear. Fireball's kind of like a stronger version of Fire Spear. And I believe it had a little bit of AoE damage to it as well. As you can see there's like an explosion where Fire Spear is more of a direct shot. And Fire Lance is just a stronger version of Fire Spear. I don't even think it's... I think it's the same size too. So if you hit one, and as you hit one, you cycle through all of these spells. So then if I hit two, that's where I put the ice spells at. So there's Greater Cold Ball, Greater Ice Ball. Interesting thing to note about the ice spear, when you would shoot that one at people, if you had like 2 or 3 people lined up, it would go through all of them. Alright, so the wind spells, this is what was pretty controversial back in the day. So there's a tornado. Now I'm gonna hit myself with this. This is one of the few spells you can actually hit yourself with. See how it kind of takes the screen and shifts it? Imagine being in a fight with somebody and then having your screen just shift. And the other thing to note is it's not just shifting the screen, it kind of like temporarily blacks the screen out and then moves it. So it's really hard to counteract that. And almost all of the wind spells did this, so they were always really deemed to be one of the more annoying things in the game. And then this is the other ice spell I wanted to show off, Reflective Ice. I always thought that was a cool spell. So it just bounces around twice. The Reflective Ice 1 bounces around once, Reflective Ice 2 bounces twice. So a lot of times what people did is they'd actually shoot it down at the ground and then have it bounce up into you. Kind of like that. And then last but not least, this was a pretty cool looking spell. It's gonna be alright, let's take you guys around Keep a little bit here and show this map off. So this was the most popular map in Spellbinder. Almost all of the events happened in this map. You were always able to get a game on this map. So these Earth nodes, now I'm not connected to a server so I can't interact with them, but what you would do is you'd walk onto this thing and you'd hit a button. I want to say it was spacebar, but I can't remember for sure what button it was. And you would convert the node to your team's color, and as you can see on the map, you have lines connecting from your from the beginning all the way to over here. So these lines would connect, and then that's how they drew power. And then as you progress through the map, as long as these earth nodes belong to you, you would have ammo regeneration, or what they called mana, and the regeneration was called lay. So red would often find themselves going down here, and as they were trying to push into blue, this would be a way to do it. And then this is the blue equivalent of their earth node of the red teams. So sprinting back over, I want to show off all of the home nodes for red. Here's the center one. This one would always be the hardest one to get because typically the top and the bottom node would be owned by red. And if you were going after the center node, it would be harder to get. And then here is the top node for the red team. So when it came time to fighting in one of the shard rooms, people would oftentimes take the high ground and then just try to rain down on the defenders. Tornado was always a good spell for that. Reflective Ice, any of these kind of area effects spells, like that one, you would just rain down on them. So keeping high ground, as always, an important thing in this game. So, and then this just circles around the whole area. So healers might try to hide somewhere around here. Healers had a wall spell that they could cast, and then they could kind of block off one of the ways and then resurrect and heal people up here. So this was kind of like the healer's last stand area. So, fancy little bookcase. So as we get out of the red area, get into this cool looking room. And here you got a high ground area to that earth node. And then here is the infamous courtyard. So this was the area that you wouldn't fight in this area a whole lot when the game was actually happening, but when we had tournaments and just other events and stuff like that, you'd have the game ops up here, and they'd coordinate everybody down here, and they'd split you up into teams, or you'd hunt the op or set up different teams and tournaments and stuff like that. But this was always kind of like the central meeting ground area for that. But again, there wasn't a lot of fighting in this courtyard. Most of the fighting happened in this room. So this is the center of the map. Typically, how this map usually worked is nobody would grab the yellow team. They'd kill off the yellow team right away, and it would just be red versus blue. So in this room here, depending on what side was winning, there would usually be a choke point battle right here, or fighting into that room there. And then if blue was winning, it would usually be that room there, or fighting into this room here. It was hard to push through to the red team. Their defense structure, just in terms of the way the map is set up, just favored the red team. So when the red team lost, it was just unusual. Usually the fight took place here. So what a lot of times people would do is they'd go through the yellow team's base to come out over here to try to get more of a ground on the blue team, because the blue team usually was able to hold off that doorway. Let me quick show you over to the yellow team. I was one of the guys that actually would always try to take over the yellow team and try to make it a 3-team battle. A lot of the community never really went with it though. But I always like the yellow team's base. They've got a kind of like a cool little cave layout. Here's the yellow team's shrine. The shrines are all the same, shrine room wise. It's just all these stairways that lead up to a boxy structure at the top where you can just rain down. Same window structure, all that's all the same. So the problem with the yellow team is their middle node is right in the middle of the map, and it's always the choke point. So the yellow team's trying to fight out of their own base, basically. They can't even control their middle node, and it was kind of a poor map setup. Really, that node there, in my opinion, should have been somewhere over here. Maybe in this room here. But it is what it is. I always like this room up here too. This room here, if you could get the yellow, if you actually had people on the yellow team, it was hard to take this node. Yellow team was usually able to defend this one pretty good because they had a nice little high ground that they could rain down on. Fireballs are usually pretty good here. You could rain down a fireball. Reflective Ice was another good one. Bounce ice down there. It was hard for people to get up here and survive. So if we go over to the blue team side, this is blue team's middle node. Usually they didn't lose this node very easily either. They typically controlled this one, but if the red team was really overpowering them, they would get stuck to the bottom. Usually they'd have to fight through the bottom. So bottom node is right here, and what they would do is try to come through here and get to the red team's bottom node. So you usually have like 5 people set to defend the top, and then you put the rest of them to attacking the bottom. That was usually Blue's way of getting leverage on the red team. And then blue team, their back area, another cave. Kind of a weird little ground layout that made it hard for the reflective ice. So like I said earlier, a lot of people like to bounce the reflective ice off the ground, but you know, they get a couple weird little lips on the ground here. And it's honestly one of the only maps I know of or can think of that had these kind of odd little ground layouts. And then bam, you're in the blue team shrine. So that's basically Keep in a nutshell. And again, this was the most popular map in the game. Anytime you came into this game, you were always able to play on Keep. So let's load up a different map on a different hero. We'll go to Temple. And we'll do Mystic. Make sure, yeah, spells are set for Mystic as well. So with the Mystic was basically, he was able to move fast, he could jump, he could levitate. He had blinding spells that would just impede your vision in different ways. Some were just outright blind you, other ones would be kind of like temporary bright kind of images in your face. And then he could hide himself, he could turn into a shadow, and depending on what level you were and what spell you had, you could move while being shadowed, or you'd have to just stay perfectly still to be hiding. So let's show you Mystic. So the starting spots again are kind of goofy. Let me go to a team's shrine here. Temple is such a giant map. This was probably the second most popular map in the game, but with that said, you didn't see it played a whole lot. So, alright, we're starting on the blue shrine this time. I always really liked this map. I'm a big Egyptian guy just in general, so this map always kind of gave me a cool vibe. So starting in the blue shrine, you got a lot of pillars, you got another high ground, and then you got this cool thing where you can levitate in. It's basically your elevator to the top. So, let me show you some of these spells. So, certain spells I'm not going to really be able to show for him because I don't have somebody to cast them on. Misery, Blind, and Torture, I'm not going to be able to show any of these. These were all casting spells, and they would show up like a ring around your opponent if you hit them with it. There you go. That's what they looked like when they were shadowed. And then as you sprint, you kind of become more visible. And then as you stop, you become clearer again. So if you stayed somewhere where there was a shadow, you're a little harder to see than when you're standing in the light. Fade is a lesser version of it, so as soon as I sprint, you can be seen. Greater Shadow. So Greater Shadow takes the colors out of your model. So once you stand somewhere in the dark, you're a lot harder to see now than with Fade. And you can sprint with this one. So usually what they do is they try to find little dark areas on the map to hide in. And then just wait for people to pass by, blind them, and then they'd light them up with something like that. Let's see. Let me go back to the shrine, then I can show you air run. So this is a way to levitate and also be able to move fast. You were able to shoot while levitating, and then it lasts for a certain amount of time, and then you just drop. So you gotta the more you play it, the more you kind of get the timings down. Older game doesn't actually give you the countdown to it, so it's kind of a thing where you gotta feel it out. You can do haste and run faster, so you can use that to get away or catch up to somebody you're trying to catch up to. So let's explore this map a little bit. So coming out of the main area, there's a couple different ways to come out here. This map is very confusing to show. So coming out of the spawn there, get your first node. You've got some ladders. This map has basically two main levels to it. Mystics would typically try to take the high ground. So would magicians. Ruin mages and healers. Well, healers kind of just follow along, but ruin mages usually would stay lower. So yeah, let's just wander around for a little bit. So that tunnel there comes out here. They both interconnect right here. Let's go this way. Come out there. I guess that's supposed to be like a palm tree pillar. Kind of drop down on people right here. You always had to watch your back on this map. This was a Mystic map. That's why I wanted to show Mystic on this map. This map, you could take advantage of Mystic the best. You were a Mystic main, you were always trying to get people to play with you on this map. Mummies are loud. So here's the main room for the red team. I always love the artwork on this map. And then you got the red shard, which looks completely like the other ones. The rooms leading up to them change a little bit. This was a good map though for having 3 teams on. You usually could keep 3 teams going on a map like this. This is usually where everybody would kind of clump together to where all the main fights started, and then depending on who started winning and pushing who back, the map would kind of go from there, but this would usually be the main room for that. The other part of that room. So you can see all the high ground areas. I think I've got one of the jumps loaded. Greater leaping. So if you combine greater leaping with air run, let's try this here. And you'd be able to jump up here. And then you just hit the crouch button, and now you've got the high ground on people. real easy to get to as a Mystic, and that's why this was a Mystic map. So yeah, that's the temple. In my opinion, I think this map aged the best out of all of them. This was one of the original maps in Spellbinder, but I think out of all the maps that I've looked at, this one aged pretty well. So if you weren't a Mystic, this is how you got the high ground. Took the ladder, or you came out of the shrine room. And then you just stayed high. But if the Mystics took you out, you got another ladder there. And if you weren't a good Mystic, this map was annoying, because you'd see other Mystics doing really well, and then you'd wonder why you couldn't do well. But yeah, you'd just be able to run right by people that would be completely unsuspecting of you. And then, if you really wanted to be sneaky, try to take out the team's beginning node, and then just cut off all their power. Alright, let's bring up a different map. Ruins, the other original map. And we'll do the Ruin Mage on Ruins. Alright. Blue Team Shrine. Ruin Mage. Void Ball. All the Void. So this guy here could lay down basically mines. So, okay, I'm actually in the red team's side. Waiting for my mana to regain at the top. Okay, so say I'm on the red team and I'm attacking the blue team, and I know there's going to be some blue team guys coming down this way. I can set some mines here so that they can't get into the building or into the room without going through them and hitting them and blowing up. I don't remember if that was enough to actually kill somebody or not, but it was definitely enough to weaken them and make them think twice about going in there without maybe having a healer behind them or something like that. Same thing applies from last map to this map. You could sit up here. One cool thing is you could sit up here and shoot down into one of the main entrances of the into the shrine area, and you could kind of defend this area from just being up here. So let's take our sideways out and start exploring the map. Oh, I should probably show these off too. Oh, you know what I should do? There you go, you can see one of the spells. So that's a shield that the Ruin Mage had, made him a little tankier. And then he had slow ruins too, so if you hit one of these, it would just make you run really slow. And then Confusion Ruin would kind of spin you around a little bit. There's the dagger. Great Axe. I always like the Great Axe. I like the noise that it made. It looks like it's got confetti coming out of it. Mace. And the axe. Those are the main spells you would see from a Ruin Mage, were those, along with the mines. So coming out here, I always like this area. So the two sideways areas dump off into here. So this is, if you don't have this node on your team, you're in trouble. So coming out here, you've got two different ways to come out. So one comes out here, and then the other one circle around and come out here. So you got two ways that you could sneak into that base. This one being the main one because it's got the earth node on it. And if you're attacking the team and they've got this earth node along with the one we just passed back that way, that node's going to be a lot harder to get if they've got this one connected to it. So this is usually the way that the enemy would take, usually. Now you kind of get into Mystic territory. This would definitely be the area the Mystics would try to hang out at. You had high ground, you had dark areas to kind of hide in. So this would be one of their earth nodes to kind of own and dominate. Oh, that circles back to that one there. This is a really big room. Followed up by another giant room. I think this is one of the bigger rooms in the whole game. You can see the frames dropping in this room. So starting to head over to the red team side, taking one of these elevators up. You could drop down. Or you could take it all the way to their shrine. A lot of different areas to defend on this map. It's really hard to contain teams, because you could just skip right by this whole node if you wanted to. Start spawn camping, trying to hunt down the healers. Otherwise, if you hit crouch, you fall down and into one of these rooms. This is one of the areas that you could drop down in. Mystics would oftentimes hide behind some of these rocks like this and just wait. So that's what the ruins would look like as you're fighting. You might be fighting somebody. There's a slow ruin. Fighting, and then all of a sudden you hit one. Oh, now I'm slow. And then bam, now I'm getting blown up. In my opinion, these things are too easy to see. I mean, there were certain areas on certain maps where they were harder to see, but generally speaking, certain maps favored certain colored teams. The next map I'm going to show, which is Glacier, if you were a blue ruin mage on that one, your mines were pretty difficult to see, and you'll see why when I pull that map up. So another area for mystics, they could jump up there and hide and come down on you. Again, this is all kind of mystic territory over here. And then back to the main chamber. This map didn't get played very much. I can't remember playing on this map a whole lot. I remember there being a few events on this map, but generally speaking, the community didn't play it. It was pretty rare. Every once in a while, I would launch up a new game and pick some of these more obscure maps just to kind of, you know, spice things up a little bit. And sometimes people would join, other times people wouldn't. But, I don't know. I think this map would be interesting to play with a full team. With 3 full teams, rather, and just see what happens. And then yellow team shrine. Yellow teams looks just like the rest. Although, interestingly enough, they don't have 2 ways out of here. I mean, you could go up the top and around, but they've only got 1 direct route to their Earth node. The yellow's kind of got a little bit of an advantage on blue in that way. Which I never really understood with Spellbinder maps, why they wouldn't just make it all the same. That's the only reason that I think you'd see a lot of domination per a certain team on certain maps. Alright, let's pull up Glacier. So Glacier was the one added map to Spellbinder. The game started with the 3 that I just showed, and then they added Glacier maybe like a year into it, 6 months to a year, somewhere around there. Let me run over to a shrine. We'll come out of blues here. Alright, so with Glacier, your shrine starts in this frozen little chamber. And as you come out, you gotta go up. And then you gotta take all of these nodes that are right around it. Now, the problem with this map is that all these nodes are so close to the shrine. It was always so hard to get control of them all. And it was almost impossible to take out the shrine without at least getting 2 of these nodes around the center shrine. If you didn't do that, it would be borderline impossible. So this is the one that links you to the outside. So then from here, you had a bridge and all kinds of elevation right here. So if you were a mystic, you could just pick and choose where you wanted to take the fight. Not many people fought on this bridge, though. I don't remember many people using this. So we're going to drop down here. So now we're on the ground level. Huh. Interesting, the bridge is like cut off. I never noticed that before. Anyway, so ground level. Let's make our way through the glacier. So you got your high ground and your low ground. You can keep to the high ground to the next area. If you wanted to be a jerk, you could rain down tornadoes on the people trying to take the node and defend it. And try to go up and around people to get to the other node. Or you can just keep going, try to take the fight closer to the enemy team shrine. To this room. If you were a mystic, you probably could make that jump. Oh, I jumped too far. It's a bit of a jump bug. When you've got too much FPS, you kind of jump a little goofy in the game. But yeah, there you go. Now we're getting into the red team's territory. Can I make that? No, well, let me make that one. So then you gotta go up. So a lot of times you get the fight over here. People trying to keep you out. Ruin mages would lay traps in here. And you can't shoot the traps. You have to hit them. You have to go through them to get rid of them. So that's why having a healer follow you around when you're dealing with ruin mages was pretty much the way to go with them. And then we get to the red team shrine, and all the shrines on this map were pretty much the same. You got your 3 surrounding the shrine, and then your pit with the actual shrine in it. So in that way, this map is more balanced. Like the makers kind of learned a little bit. The one problem with this map is it's so ginormous. I think this is the biggest map that they made. So you got a level here. Now we'll start branching down. I'll cut in over here. You got this node here. And if you come down, then you got those two. This map is a maze. It's like I'm half looking at the map while I'm exploring and I'm still getting lost. So many like levels to this map. And then you start getting down to the yellow team. And then this is where it all starts getting the same again. The bridge is a little different here. And then we get to the yellow team side and then it gets all the same again. So yeah, this is Spellbinder. This was the prequel to Dark Ages of Camelot, the sequel to Magestorm, and this was a very fun game for me. I played this game quite a bit, 99 to about 2002, until Dark Ages of Camelot came out, and then I went over to that game. But nice little nostalgia run just to go through some of these maps again, shoot the spells off. I'll do a follow-up video if I can ever get my hands on the healer, because I'd love to show the healer. The healer had a lot of cool spells. It could put walls up, buff people, heal people, and in my opinion had one of the coolest damage spells in the whole game in terms of looks. show the credits. Alright, I hope you guys enjoyed the in-depth look at what Spellbinder was.